Jake never believed in aliens. Not once in his 28 years, sure. He'd seen the movies and heard the stories, but come on, little green men from outer space? That was just Hollywood nonsense. He was a photographer, a man who lived in reality, capturing real moments with his camera. That Tuesday night changed everything forever. Jake was driving through the desert outside a small New Mexico town. He'd been on the road for 3 weeks, taking pictures of old buildings and forgotten places for his upcoming photo book. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, empty except for his beat-up Honda and the stars above. His phone had no signal out. Here, the radio played only static, just him, the road, and miles of nothing in every direction. Perfect for thinking, terrible for emergencies. That's when his car started making that sound. A weird grinding noise that made his stomach drop. The engine light flickered on, then stayed bright red. Jake pulled over to the shoulder, hoping it was just a loose belt or something simple. But when he popped the hood, steam poured out like an angry dragon. The smell hit him immediately, burning oil, hot metal, and his dreams of finishing this road trip dying a slow death. His car was completely dead. Jake grabbed his phone. No bars. Of course, he was probably 50 miles from the nearest town, maybe more. The desert stretched in all directions, looking like the surface of Mars under the moonlight. Beautiful for photos, horrible for being stranded. He called roadside assistance anyway, hoping for a miracle. After 20 minutes of please hold, a tired voice told him it would be at least 4 hours before anyone could reach him. 4 hours. In the middle of nowhere, with nothing but cactus and rocks for company. Jake leaned against his car and looked up at the sky. He'd never seen so many stars. Living in the city his whole life, he forgot how incredible the night sky could look without light pollution. Maybe this wasn't so bad. He could take some night photos while he waited. He set up his camera on the tripod and started shooting. Long exposures of the star trails, the desert landscape bathed in moonlight. His broken car looking lonely on the empty highway. At least he'd get some good shots out of this disaster. That's when he noticed the light. At first, Jake thought it was an airplane, just a steady white dot moving across the stars. But airplanes blink. They make noise. They follow straight paths. This light was different. It moved in ways that made no sense, zigzagging through the sky like it was dancing. Jake stopped taking pictures and just watched. The light grew bigger, brighter. It wasn't moving away anymore. It was coming toward him. His heart started beating faster. Maybe it was a helicopter. Someone coming to help with his car. But helicopters are loud, and this thing was completely silent. The light got bigger and bigger until Jake realized it wasn't a light at all. It was a craft. Round, smooth, about the size of a small house. It hung in the air maybe 100 feet above the highway, not making a sound. No propellers, no jets, no noise at all. Just floating there like it weighed nothing. Jake's hands started shaking. This wasn't possible. Things like this didn't happen to regular people like him. He rubbed his eyes, thinking maybe the desert heat had gotten to him. Maybe he was seeing things. But when he opened his eyes, the craft was still there, and it was coming down. Jake wanted to run. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to get away from this thing. But his feet wouldn't move. He stood frozen by his car, watching something impossible land on the highway. In front of him, the craft touched down without making a sound. No dust cloud, no impact, nothing. It just settled onto the asphalt like a feather floating to the ground, up close. Jake could see it was made of some kind of metal that seemed to shift colors in the moonlight, silver, then blue, then almost transparent. For a long moment, nothing happened. Jake stood there staring at the thing, his mouth hanging open, his camera forgotten in his hands. His brain kept trying to make sense of what he was seeing, but it was like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Then a section of the craft's wall just melted away, like ice dissolving in warm water. 3 figures stepped out. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with long, thin arms and legs. Their skin looked pale gray in the moonlight, almost like they were made of moonbeams themselves. But it was their eyes that made Jake's blood turn cold. Big, dark, taking up half their faces. eyes that seemed to look right through him. Two of the beings stayed by their craft, but the third one walked toward Jake. As it got closer, he realized this one was different, smaller than the others, more delicate. The way it moved reminded him of a dancer, graceful and careful. And those eyes, they weren't cold like the others. There was something warm in them, something that seemed almost human. The being stopped about 10 feet away from Jake. He could see now that it was female, though he wasn't sure how he knew that. Something about her face, her movements. She tilted her head and looked at him. With those huge dark eyes, Jake tried to speak, but no sound came out. His throat felt like sandpaper. His legs were shaking so hard he thought he might fall over him. This was really happening. He was really standing on a highway in the middle of nowhere, face to face with something from another world. The female being took another step closer. When she opened her mouth to speak, Jake expected to hear strange alien sounds, maybe clicks, and whistles like in the movies. Instead, she spoke perfect English. "You're the human from my dreams," she said, her voice soft and musical. Jake felt his world flip upside down. Dreams? She'd been dreaming about him? How was that even possible? He opened his mouth to ask 1,000 questions, but no words came out. His brain had completely stopped working. The alien girl took another step forward, and Jake could see something that looked almost like excitement in those dark eyes. Like she'd been searching for him her whole life and finally found him. "I've been looking for you," she continued, her voice filled with wonder. "For so long, I've seen your face in my sleep. Your world, your thoughts, your memories. I didn't understand why until now." Jake's knees went weak. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Alien girls didn't drop out of the sky and tell random photographers they'd been dreaming about them. This was the kind of thing that happened in movies, not real life. But here she was, standing right in front of him, as real as his broken car and the stars overhead. "Who are you?" Jake finally managed to whisper. She smiled then, and it was the most beautiful and terrifying thing he'd ever seen. It was a smile that held secrets of the universe, mysteries beyond human understanding. "My name would be difficult for your mouth to speak," she said, "but in your dreams, you call me." That's when Jake's world went black. His legs gave out, his vision tunneled, and he collapsed onto the highway. The last thing he remembered was those dark eyes looking down at him with something that might have been concern or love. When he woke up, the sun was rising, and he was alone. Dr. Lisa Chen's lab looked like something from a science fiction movie. Computer screens covered every wall, showing star maps, radio wave patterns, and mathematical equations that made Jake's head spin. But Dr. Chen herself was surprisingly normal, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an eager smile. "Show me everything," she said the moment Jake walked in. Jake pulled out the crystal and placed it on her desk. Dr. Chen's eyes went wide as the patterns inside began swirling faster, responding to the new environment. She grabbed a device that looked like a fancy scanner and ran it over the crystal. "This is incredible," she whispered. "The energy readings are off the charts. This isn't made of any material from Earth." Jake showed her the photos on his camera, watching as Dr. Chen's scientific calm slowly turned to excitement. She studied each image carefully, taking notes and measurements. "Jake, do you understand what you have here?" she asked. "This is the first real physical evidence of extraterrestrial contact, not blurry photos or questionable videos, but actual proof." "But what does it mean?" Jake asked. "Why did they give this to me? What do they want?" Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment, staring at the crystal. "I think we need to find out what this device does. Would you be willing to let me run some tests?" For the next 3 days, Dr. Chen and Jake worked together trying to unlock the crystal's secrets. They tried everything: heat, cold, electricity, sound waves. The crystal reacted to some things, but never in ways they could understand. That's when Jake started having the dreams. The first night, he dreamed he was floating in space, looking down at Earth. But he wasn't alone. The alien girl was there with him, though he still didn't know her name. She was trying to tell him something important, but he couldn't understand the words. The second night, the dream was clearer. Jake could see what looked like a tear in space itself, like someone had cut a hole in reality. Through the tear, he saw other worlds, other stars. But something was wrong. The tear was getting bigger, and it was pulling things through it that didn't belong. The third night, Jake woke up screaming. In his dream, he'd seen Earth being torn apart by the expanding rip in space. Cities disappeared, oceans drained away, and billions of people vanished into the void. But worst of all, he felt the alien girl's terror as her own world faced the same horrible fate. Jake called Dr. Chen at 3 in the morning. "Something's wrong," he said, his voice shaking. "Really, really wrong. I think that crystal is trying to show me something, but I can't understand it." Dr. Chen met him at the lab an hour later. When Jake described his dreams, she got very quiet. "Jake, I need to tell you something," she said. "Yesterday, while you were sleeping, I detected some unusual activity from the crystal. It was sending out signals, very faint ones. I think it's been trying to communicate." She led Jake to a computer, where waves of data scrolled across the screen. "I've been trying to decode these signals. Some of them look like star charts, others might be mathematical formulas. But there's something else." Dr. Chen pulled up a new screen showing a complex pattern of lines and shapes. "I think this might be a language. Not words like we use, but concepts and ideas transmitted directly into your mind through the dreams." Jake stared at the patterns, and suddenly they seemed familiar. He'd seen these same shapes in his dreams, floating in the space around him and the alien girl. "Can you translate it?" Jake asked. "I've been trying, but I think you're the key," Dr. Chen said. "The crystal responds to you differently than it does to me. I think it was programmed specifically for your mind." That afternoon, Jake held the crystal and concentrated on the patterns Dr. Chen had found. Slowly, very slowly, the shapes began to make sense, not as words, but as pure understanding flowing directly into his thoughts. The first message was simple: danger. The second was more complex: 2 worlds, same threat, time running out. But it was the third message that changed everything: need human creativity. Logical minds cannot solve this. Jake's eyes snapped open. "They're in trouble," he said. "Her people, they're facing some kind of disaster, and they can't figure out how to stop it." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "What kind of disaster?" Jake closed his eyes and concentrated harder. More images flooded his mind. The tear in space wasn't natural. It was some kind of experiment gone wrong, an attempt to travel between dimensions that had created a growing hole in reality itself. "It's like a rip between different versions of space," Jake explained, struggling to put the alien concepts into human words. "It's getting bigger every day, and it's going to destroy both our worlds unless someone figures out how to close it." "But why come to you?" Dr. Chen asked. "Why not contact our scientists or world leaders?" Jake felt the answer flowing into his mind from the crystal. "Because our people think in straight lines. They're incredibly smart, but they can only see logical solutions. Humans think differently. We imagine, we create. We come up with ideas that don't make sense but somehow work. So they need human creativity to solve a problem their logical minds can't handle," Dr. Chen said. "Exactly. And there's something else." Jake paused, feeling a warm sensation from the crystal. "The girl, I know her name now. She calls herself Zara, though that's not exactly right in her language. She's been dreaming about me for years because our minds were somehow connected when we were born." Dr. Chen frowned. "Connected how?" Jake shrugged. "I don't fully understand it. Something about quantum entanglement on a cosmic scale. The same energy that creates the problem they're trying to solve also created these connections. Between some humans and some of her people. How many connections? I don't know. Maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. But Zara was assigned to find me specifically because my mind works in ways that complement hers." Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Finally, she looked at Jake with serious eyes. "So what happens now? How do we help them?" Jake felt the crystal grow warm in his hands. New images flowed into his mind: star charts, mathematical equations, and a sense of desperate urgency. "She's coming back," Jake said. Tomorrow night. At the same place where we first met. She'll bring equipment and information. But the real work has to be done by both of us together. Human imagination combined with their technology. What kind of work? Jake saw flashes of possibility in his mind. Devices that bent space and time. Energy patterns that could stitch reality back together. Solutions that were part science and part art. I don't know exactly, Jake admitted, but I think we're going to try to save two worlds. Dr. Chen stared at him. Are you ready for something like that? Jake thought about his quiet life as a photographer, taking pictures of old buildings and forgotten places. A week ago, his biggest worry was whether his photo book would sell enough copies to pay rent. Now he was apparently humanity's representative in a cosmic crisis. That could destroy entire worlds. No, Jake said honestly, I'm terrified. But I keep thinking about that dream where Earth was torn apart. All those people who died. If there's even a chance I can help prevent that, he trailed off. But Dr. Chen nodded. I'll come with you tomorrow night, she said. You shouldn't face this alone. Jake felt grateful, but also worried. What if it's dangerous? Jake, if what you've shown me is real, then the whole universe is in danger. A little personal risk seems worth it. That night, Jake had the clearest dream yet. He was standing with Zara on some kind of platform floating in space around them. The tear in reality pulsed and grew, swallowing stars and planets. But for the first time, Jake wasn't just watching helplessly. He was working alongside Zara. Their minds connected in ways that let them share ideas instantly. Jake's human creativity sparked new possibilities, while Zara's advanced knowledge turned those possibilities into real solutions. In the dream, they were building something together, a device that was part machine, part living organism, part pure thought made real. It was beautiful and impossible and absolutely necessary. When Jake woke up, he knew exactly what they had to do. The question was whether they'd have enough time to do it. Inside Zara's ship, Jake felt like he was walking through a living dream. The walls pulsed with soft light that seemed to respond to their emotions. When Jake felt nervous, the light dimmed to calm blues. When Zara felt excited about their mission, warm golden patterns flowed across the ceiling. Your ship is alive, Dr. Chen whispered, running her hand along a wall that felt warm and smooth like skin. In a way, yes, Zara replied, leading them deeper into the vessel. We grow our technology rather than build it. This ship was born from my thoughts and needs. It understands me as I understand it. They entered a vast chamber at the ship's heart, where reality itself seemed flexible. Jake could see Earth floating in one section of space, while Zara's world spun slowly in another. But between them, like a wound that wouldn't heal, was the dimensional rift. It was worse than Jake had imagined. The tears stretched across space, like a jagged mouth, crackling with dark energy as he watched. Pieces of both worlds were being pulled into it and disappearing forever. It's gotten bigger, Zara said sadly, even in the time it took me to return to you. Jake stared at the rift and felt something he hadn't expected. It wasn't just destroying things, it was in pain. The dark energy around it pulsed like a heartbeat, like something alive and suffering. You're right, Jake said suddenly. It is alive, and it's hurt. Dr. Chen pulled out her recording equipment, but the devices flickered and died in the ship's strange environment. The energy here is beyond anything our technology can measure, she said in amazement. Zara moved to the center of the chamber, where a complex web of crystalline structures waited. This is where we must work, she explained. These crystals will amplify our connection and let us reach across space. To touch the rift directly, Jake approached the crystals cautiously. They looked similar to the one in his pocket, but much larger and more complex. As he got closer, they began to glow brighter. What exactly do we have to do? Jake asked. Link our minds completely, Zara said. Share not just thoughts, but memories, emotions. Everything that makes us who we are. Together, we must convince the rift that healing is better than destruction. Dr. Chen looked worried. What are the risks? Zara's expression grew serious. When two minds join so completely, they can never be entirely separate again. Jake and I will always be connected. In the process of touching the rift, she paused. It may change us in ways we cannot predict. Jake felt his heart racing. The idea of being permanently connected to Zara was both thrilling and terrifying. What if they couldn't separate afterward? What if he lost himself in her alien thoughts? But then he looked at the images of Earth being slowly consumed by the rift, and his doubts disappeared. "Let's do it," Jake said. Zara smiled, and Jake felt warmth spread through his chest. "Place your hands on the central crystal," she instructed. As Jake's palms touched the smooth surface, every nerve in his body lit up with electricity. He could suddenly feel Zara's presence in his mind, not as words or images, but as pure emotion and understanding. Her memories flowed into him like water. He saw her world, cities that floated among the clouds, beings who communicated through shared thoughts, art that was created by manipulating light itself. He felt her loneliness growing up as the only one of her people who dreamed of distant worlds and unknown faces, and he felt her joy when she realized the face in her dreams belonged to a real person on a planet far away. In return, Jake shared his own memories, his childhood, his passion for photography, his search for meaning in a world that often felt empty and disconnected. Zara experienced his human emotions, the messy, complicated feelings that her logical people rarely understood. Together, their combined consciousness reached out toward the dimensional rift the moment they made contact. Jake screamed. The rift's pain hit him like a physical blow. It wasn't evil or destructive by choice. It was a creature born from violence, torn from nothingness into existence without warning or explanation. It lashed out because it didn't understand what it was or how to exist without destroying everything around it. "It's like a newborn," Jake gasped, his voice mixing with Zara's as their minds merged deeper. "It doesn't know how to control its power." Through their shared consciousness, they began to communicate with the rift, not in words, but in feelings and images. They showed it memories of healing, broken bones knitting together, cuts sealing themselves, relationships mended after terrible fights. They shared the concept of choice, that destruction wasn't the only option, that something could be powerful without being harmful. The rift's response nearly shattered their connection. Confusion, anger, and desperate loneliness poured through the link. It had never experienced kindness or understanding for its entire existence. Other beings had tried to destroy it or control it. Jake and Zara were the first to offer it something different: acceptance. "We're not trying to kill you," Jake projected through their shared thoughts. "We want to help you find peace." Slowly, carefully, they began to show the rift a new way to exist. Instead of consuming reality, it could become a bridge between worlds. Instead of destroying, it could create new possibilities. But the process was draining them both. Jake felt his human consciousness beginning to dissolve into something larger and stranger. His body was changing too. He could feel alien knowledge rewiring his brain, giving him abilities no human had ever possessed. "Jake," Dr. Chen's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Your vital signs are going crazy. I think you need to stop." But Jake couldn't stop. The rift was finally beginning to understand, finally learning to control its power. If they broke the connection now, it might return to its destructive patterns. "I have to finish this," Jake said, though he wasn't sure if he spoke out loud or just thought the words. Through their bond, Zara sent him strength and love. Together, she whispered in his mind, "Whatever happens, we face it together." The final moment came like a sunrise. The rift's anguished roar softened into something like music. Its chaotic energy began to organize itself into patterns of incredible beauty. Instead of tearing holes in space, it started weaving new connections between distant worlds. Jake and Zara had succeeded. The rift was no longer destroying, it was creating. But the victory came with a price. When Jake opened his eyes, he was no longer entirely human. His vision could see across multiple dimensions. His mind could process information at speeds that would have been impossible before. Most strange of all, he could feel Zara's thoughts as clearly as his own, even though she was standing across the chamber. "What have we become?" Jake whispered. Zara approached him slowly, and Jake could see that she had changed too. Her movements were more fluid, more human-like. Her eyes held emotions that her people rarely experienced. Something new, she said softly. Something that has never existed before. Dr. Chen stared at them both with a mixture of amazement and concern. Are you still, you? Jake considered the question. He still remembered his life on Earth, still felt love for photography in quiet moments. But now those feelings were mixed with alien concepts and cosmic awareness. That expanded his understanding of everything. I'm still me, Jake said finally. But I'm more than I was before. Through the ship's walls, they could see the transformed rift spinning peacefully in space, its energy now forming a bridge between Earth and Zera's world. Both planets were safe, and for the first time in their histories, the two species could meet and learn from each other. What happens now, Doctor? Chen asked. Jake looked at Zera, and through their permanent connection, they shared the same thought. Now we help our peoples understand each other, Zera said. Jake and I will be ambassadors, bridges between human creativity and our scientific knowledge. But more than that, Jake added, taking Zera's hand, we'll explore what it means to love someone from another world. Dr. Chen smiled. The first interstellar romance. The poets will have a field day with this. 3 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of a space station that floated exactly halfway between Earth and Zera's world. The station itself was a marvel built using both human imagination and alien technology. It was both functional and beautiful beyond anything either species could have created alone. Zera joined him at the observation window. Her presence in his mind as warm and comforting as always. Any regrets? She asked, both aloud and through their mental link. Jake watched ships from both worlds docking at the station, bringing scientists, artists, and curious beings eager to learn from each other. The transformed rift sparkled in the distance. No longer a threat, but a symbol of hope and connection. Only one, Jake said, smiling. I never did finish that photo book. Zera laughed, a sound that was now perfectly human. Perhaps our story will be your greatest work of art. Through their bond, Jake felt something new, a tiny spark of life that was both human and alien, creativity and logic. Earth and stars. Their first child was already beginning to grow, a new kind of being that would know no boundaries between worlds. Jake pulled Zera closer and looked out at the universe that had become their home. His ordinary life as a photographer seemed like a distant dream now, but he wouldn't trade this extraordinary reality for anything. After all, how many people get to say they fell in love with someone from their dreams and end